Welcome, everyone. We're just going to let people enter the Zoom room and um, we'll be starting shortly. Glad you could join us today. Okay. Well, good morning or afternoon or evening, depending on where you're located today. Happy to be joining you from Victoria, BC. On behalf of Rabbi Lynn Greenoff and the board of Colet Mime Reform Temple, I'd like to welcome you to our fourth lecture in our Building Bridges speaker series on the theme of Cohn Zentner, the many voices of Jewish music. We're so glad you could join us today. My name is Marilyn Wolovic, and I'm the chair of Colet Mime's Adult Education Committee and a member of this congregation at Colet Mime in Victoria, BC. I'm so grateful to have found such a nurturing and welcoming community of support. This talk is being offered with funding support from the Jewish Federation of Victoria and Vancouver Island. And I want to begin by acknowledging that I'm on the traditional lands of the Lekwungen-speaking peoples, the Songhees, Esquimalt, and Wasanic nations. And I am the granddaughter of Eastern European Jewish immigrants who came to find safety here in Canada. So I'm grateful. Our theme for Building Bridges is Cohn Zentner, the many voices of Jewish music. And in the wake of the dramatic rise in anti-Semitism following the events of October 7th, 23, it's more important than ever to celebrate and amplify the rich tapestry of Jewish culture, history, and heritage. This series of lectures explores the profound role of music in shaping and sustaining our Jewish identity across generations and around the world. Before we get started, and I turn things over to our featured guest speaker, Dr. Naomi Cohn Zentner, who's joining us from Israel, I will briefly explain our Zoom format. The webinar is being recorded and will be sent to everyone who registered. And Dr. Cohn Zentner will speak for about 50 minutes on the topic of music and war, an optimistic view. Following her presentation, we will have a 15-minute Q&A session at around noon. So you can enter your questions in the Q&A or chat tab on your Zoom screen. It will be helpful if you keep your questions short and ask in the form of a question rather than a statement. And closed captioning is available for anyone who needs it. Now, Sam, if you could please spotlight Dr. Naomi Cohn Zentner, I would appreciate that. Wonderful. Welcome. It gives me great pleasure to introduce Dr. Naomi Cohn Zentner, who is an ethnomusicologist interested in the intersections of Jewish and Israeli music, with research on historical ethnomusicology, sacred songs of the Ashkenazi domestic sphere, and cross-fertilization of Ashkenazi and Sephardi liturgical traditions in Israel. She holds a PhD in musicology from the Hebrew University of Jerusalem and was formerly head of the MA program in Jewish music at Schechter Institute. Her work appears in many journals like Ethnomusicology, Hebrew Studies, Journal of Modern Jewish Studies, and the Oxford Handbook of Jewish Music Studies. And she received an Israel Science Foundation grant for research on new musical practices among religious Jewish Israeli women. We are thrilled to feature Dr. Naomi Cohn Zentner to share her insights with us today. Please join me in offering a warm welcome to Dr. Naomi Cohn Zentner.
Thank you very much. I'm very happy to be part of this Kolot Zmirot lecture program of the Kolot Mime Temple. And I'd like to thank Marilyn Wolovic and Sam Margolis for inviting me and coordinating this Building Bridges series. So today we're going to be speaking about a little bit of a strange topic, but one which I hope will inspire us. We're talking about music and war. And we're trying to see in what ways can this be seen as not only something which is terrible, tragic, but also has in it elements of resilience and hope. I'd like to share my screen with you. And in looking for a photo for the cover of this lecture series, this lecture, I hope you can see. And there on the left-hand side, we can see a photo. I thought I'd tribute this Canadian community. We see the only person in a white shirt is Leonard Cohen, the singer, the Canadian singer and musician. And right next to him in the sort of light yellow t-shirt with the guitar is Mati Kaspi. He is an Israeli singer and songwriter, and he was very much loved. Unfortunately, today he passed away. So I thought this would be a tribute to him. And also the fact that Leonard Cohen and Mati Kaspi are pictured here while performing and singing to soldiers during the Yom Kippur War. We can see right to the left of Leonard Cohen a picture. We see this is Ariel Sharon, the man who has white hair on the left, and they're singing a song to him. And in fact, Leonard Cohen wrote his song "Who by Fire" after his October 1973 visit to Israel during the Yom Kippur War, and it was recorded early in 1974, and it was released later that year. And the lyrics are rooted in the Yom Kippur prayer of Unetane Tokef and his wartime encounters, which were singing for soldiers whose lives were in really immediate danger. And you can see behind them in this photo these tanks and armored vehicles which are going to take them to the battlefield. This probably sharpened the song's focus on judgment and mortality and the fragility of life. And Cohen actually had come to Israel without thinking he would sing for the soldiers. He wanted to volunteer, to work, to help in some way. But this chance encounter with musicians, with Israeli singers like Mati Kaspi, who asked him to join them, determined how he would contribute to the IDF. So he went down to the desert and he traveled from place to place and sang to the soldiers, knowing that it might be the last thing that they would hear. And many of them didn't actually know him, but his serious and sort of melancholy style of songs seemed to speak to them. Maybe it was the songs, or maybe it was the way they delivered, or the fact that it turned out that Cohen's worldview was exactly what was needed under these circumstances. But, he viewed himself as a pessimist he says, a pessimist is someone who waits for the rain, but me, I'm already wet, said Leonard Cohen. I'm not waiting for it to rain. We're already inside the catastrophe. So today, these words and melodies that Leonard Cohen wrote under the influence of war are heard in synagogues as part of the Yom Kippur prayers. And this happens in communities all across North America and in Israel. And that's also what happened in my synagogue in Jerusalem just last year. So this connection feels very natural to anyone who's aware of the origins of these words and the tunes for Yom Kippur. But this meeting, which happened during the Yom Kippur War between these young soldiers whose lives hung in the balance, and one of the great voices of this era, is really a moment of interest. So that's about this photo that I chose to start with. So to be able to understand what is special about how Israeli songs reflect the outlook on war, I thought we'd start with a comparison between an Israeli song called Hallelujah from 1967 and compare it with one of the most famous historic war songs called Glory Hallelujah. If you see a theme here, you're not wrong. And Glory Hallelujah was written during the Civil War in America. And so I thought we would maybe hear both. And in this way, we would be able to have a good beginning of an example. So this is called the hymn, the battle hymn of the Republic, or more famously known as Glory Hallelujah. So we just heard a very small excerpt, but you can see the words here. My eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord. He's trampling out the vintage where the grapes of wrath are stored. He hath loosed the fateful lightning of his terrible swift sword. His truth is marching on. So some of the questions we can ask about this is what is happening in this song of war and what is the glory? What is the meaning of the word hallelujah here? I have seen him in the watchfires of 100 circling camps. They have builded him an altar in the evening dews and damps. I can read his righteous sentence by the dim and flaring lamps. His truth is marching on. And thereon the gospel, and thereon we have um, as he died to make men holy, let us die to make men free. Of course, this is the Civil War, so these are things to do with ideology and anti-slavery. He is coming like the glory of the morning on the wave. He is wisdom to the mighty. He is succor to the brave. So the world should be his footstool, and the soul of time his slave. Our God is marching on. So what is the meaning of this hallelujah, and what is the glory of the battlefield in this song? I'd like to compare it to another song, which is also called Hallelujah, but this was many years ago, later. Okay, so this song was written in 1862. This song is from 1967, and this is a song which is performed by the Nachal Entertainment Troupe. You see them here. On the right, we see a photo of a very young Yoram Gaon, if you can see just in front of the accordion. And this is part of an entertainment troupe, which were in the newly established army, the IDF, the Israeli army. Every fighting unit has its own musical band, like an entertainment group, which sang for the soldiers and put on funny skits and sang songs of morale. And this is the army troop of the Nachal unit. The Nachal actually literally means a stream, but Nachal is a short named of Noar Chalutzi Lochem, the youthful pioneering, the fighting pioneering youth. And they had a song called Hallelujah. So I thought we would hear it. And in this way, we would be able to compare the two. So this is Lakat Nachal, and they're singing Hallelujah. We're going to go back and find the words in just a minute. See if I can move this a second. There we go.
Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. אם ברופאים כבר לא היה צורך, היינו שרים אז הללויה. אם בשלום הייתם רואים איך כל הצבא שר הללויה.
Okay, so I just shortened this just shortly for us, but we see here Hallelujah has a little bit of a different meaning. Hallelujah really has to do here with kind of a halevai, so be it, hopefully waiting for something which could hopefully come in the future, more than kind of a glory. And I think that while both of these songs are quite upbeat musically, when we listen to the lyrics and we see what these different songs treat as kind of sacred or important, we see that the Hallelujah means very different things in each one of them. So we have kind of two examples of two different genres of war music. One is kind of a sacralizing providential war hymn tradition, kind of seeing war very much within a religious way of life and values. While here we see in this song kind of a lament or a peace, a song for peace, a hope for peace, a prayer for peace. It's an Israeli sort of war song tradition, which shows how important peace was in these, fighting units. Many songs, and this is just one example. There are at least 5 songs I could name right now, which are related to a real hope for achieving peace and the desire that war should end. So in a way, we could see these as kind of 2 opposing examples of what war songs are about. The religious hymn of the Civil War is kind of glory, hallelujah, God is his judge. The conflict itself, the war, is very secularized, it's very religious. And violence, while terrifying, is also kind of cleansing and purifying. And death and martyrdom to make men free, to sacrifice yourself for freedom. It's kind of a redemptive sacrifice. There's something sort of holy about this sacrifice and this heroism and dedication to the cause within this religious way of looking at of this belief. And victory and glory, the war is kind of a glorious thing. There's triumph in the moral certainty of a righteous cause, which is what people are believing in. On the other hand, on the right, I think we see something which is more characterizing of these peace songs. Also, Shir LaShalom, the song for peace, which is a very famous Israeli song, which was also sung by the army bands. Again, you have soldiers in their compulsory army service wearing uniforms, singing to soldiers who are going into battle combat units, and they're singing about peace. Many of their songs are about peace. So war is seen as maybe tragic necessity, but there's no romanticism of it. And what is holy? Life itself is holy. There's not a holy war. And there's less glory in death, and death is more as a warning sign and as a reason to stop wars, and not as something which is glorious, as the previous song was in a way. And heroism is kind of viewed in these songs of peace of Israel, again, not all of them, but many of them, as a quiet duty. It's not glorified and it's not redeeming in any way. And what is desirable and sacred is peace, the desire for peace. And many songs are talking about a desire for peace, and they look at the civilian world of the home, the wife, the child, as the measure of what is this desire for peace and what normal life should be like. And this is within this realm of Israeliness. It's a very secular outlook, but it's also a very national outlook of these songs of peace. So this is one of the ways in which we see, if I was in a classroom, I would ask you, what does the word hallelujah actually mean literally in each one of these songs? And we would analyze your answers. But I know in this format that's impossible, so I'm just going to leave it out there. So war in Israel is forced upon us, especially in these songs. We're not glorifying war as it is, although there are certain songs which are aimed at giving soldiers motivation, which do glorify certain aspects of victory and war, and sometimes they name particular units to give them an added to raise their morale and their pride. But there were also many songs which mainly voiced a desire to try and give hope, to see the good in an awful situation. This is where this optimism comes from in the title of our lecture today, and to represent and to create resilience. And this happened also in new songs which were written during the war, particularly now in the 2023 October War. There were new songs which were written, many songs written during the war, but also they were looking at the older songs, such as this song from 1967 and many others, which had been written during the war, but they're using them and recodifying them and reconfiguring them. These older well-loved songs, such as songs of Naomi Shemer, even songs of ABBA, and using them again and giving new meaning to these well-known and well-loved lyrics. So we're going to see an example of this. This is a TV show. It's a reality music TV show called HaKochav Haba LeEurovision, the next Eurovision contestant, which sends the winner of the contest to represent Israel as a singer in the Eurovision contest, which is a very big European song contest between all of the different countries in Europe and Australia. Don't ask me why. But Israel has been part of it for many years, and sometimes it's even won first place. Songs like Chai, Chai, Chai for Ofra Chaza, or songs like Diva by Dana International came to the first place, and lately Netta Barzilai came to the first place with a song called I'm Not Your Toy. So we've done pretty well, but also it's a way to represent Israel, particularly in these difficult times, to represent Israel and Israeliness to a European audience, and it's very widely broadcast, so it's a real opportunity to get Israel's message, and also just to show Israel's beautiful face out there. So one of the contestants in this pre-Eurovision Song Contest was singer Daniel Weiss. We see him here on the right in a black suit, and here down here with a white t-shirt and a guitar. He has a very tragic story. He was a member of Kibbutz Be'eri, which was one of the kibbutzim which was most tragically hurt in the October 7th attacks. He lost both his parents in Kibbutz Be'eri, and in this photo we actually see him singing on the burnt background of his home, and his parents unfortunately were killed in this attack. And so he is a singer, and he performed in this competition. And up here, we see this duet with this beautiful girl, and one of the performances, which they, in these song contests, they of course usually perform well-known songs. And one of the songs which they chose to sing was to sing Leonard Cohen's Hallelujah, to return to our theme of both Hallelujah and a Canadian singer. They sang it in Hebrew and in Arabic with this Arab singer Valerie Hamati, which we see on the left. And of course, this image was so powerful and iconic of them singing this song together in Hebrew and Arabic after everything that had happened. It was a very emotional moment. And we're going to hear another song which Daniel Weiss chose to sing in this song contest. He chose to sing a song which was written by Naomi Shemer in 1993, and it was written in honor of a famous singer called Benny Amdurski, and he unfortunately had became very terminally ill with cancer, and in a program which was dedicated to him, and while he was still alive, Naomi Shemer was asked to write a song of tribute, which he himself as a singer could sing, and it was the last song of this concert. And the song is called Ani Gitara, I'm a guitar. I'm a guitar, the wind plays on me when the seasons changed. I'm a guitar, I used to be a tree, perhaps, and through my echo chamber, I remember all those who played on me, and I say, thank you. So here we're going to see a clip from a video of Daniel Weiss, this young man from Kibbutz Be'eri, who is singing this song, a very, very sad song, which was originally composed in the context of someone facing his death. And in this case, he's thinking of his mother and father who he lost in the previous year in the October 7th attack. And he's singing this song, which really receives a new meaning. So let's see it together.
אני גיטרה, הייתי פעם עץ אולי, ובתיבת התהודה אני זוכר את כל מי שניגן עליי, ואני אומר וואו אבא, אמא, תודה.
So this is, of course, a very emotional moment because Daniel Wise gives this song as a tribute to his parents, and they died in such a tragic way, and he chooses to give like this positive interpretation of a chance to thank his parents in the middle of his performance on stage. You know, the song does have a lyric, I remember all those who played on me before, and I say thank you. And this symbolic issue of a guitar, which used to be a tree, but still has in it the ability to thank all those who played on him or played with him, is very, very emotional. So he was one of the contestants, but actually Daniel Wise was not chosen to represent Israel in the Eurovision Song Contest. If you recall, last year instead it was singer Yuval Rafael. She sang a song. This is Yuval Rafael, and she won the contest. And this is the song which she sang in her final moment. And again, we have to remember that all this is taking place within the war, with the war in the backdrop. In the war is always in the backdrop. We always think of the war in the background of what's happening. Both of these contestants were very closely connected to what happened in the war. Daniel Wise, who lost both his parents, and Yuval Rafael is actually a survivor of the Nova Festival, and she had to hide and pretend she was dead to survive it in a bomb shelter when terrorists came and tried to make sure everyone was killed. She pretended she was dead, and so she really had been through so much. She lost her friends, and she almost lost her life. And she chose as her final song in the contest a song called Dancing Queen by ABBA, which is usually an upbeat, kind of a happy song, dance with a strong beat and, kind of quick tempo. But here she chose kind of a quiet arrangement, and she explained her choice. She said, "It's a moment where I say how lucky I am to have won, but this song I sing is all about the angels who weren't fortunate enough to be here now. It hurts because I had this chance, not only to come back, come back from the festival, and to live, but to fulfill my dream, and there are those who stayed there. And the shadow behind me is the only thing left of them. That's why it's important for me to go there, to the Eurovision, and to bring that voice there." So here we're going to see her singing this song, Dancing Queen, in kind of a very special interpretation.
Dancing queen, feel the beat from the tambourine. Oh yeah, you can dance, you can jive, half in the time of your life. See that girl, watch that scene, digging the dancing queen.
So this is kind of an example again of how this song is reconfigured and given a new meaning, especially these girls who were into a dancing music festival with the most lovely, happy atmosphere, and the terrible tragedy attack, this terror attack, which so many young girls were killed in. So this is her tribute to it. And in a way, it's kind of also her way of memorializing them and bringing them with her. As she says, her chance to be here, but there are others who weren't here, and so it's a way to remember them. So this is already about a year and a half even after the October attacks. And eventually, Yuval Rafael went to the Eurovision. She went with a beautiful song called New Day Will Rise. And she brought with her a lot of honor to the Israeli public. She came to the second place. She was very, very popular. And this had to do with memorialization. But right after one of the first... Sorry, just moving on. One of the first songs which were actually sung or even just sounded out on Facebook was a musician called her name is Doron Talmon, and she is part of a ensemble called Jane Boldo. And she wrote this song, and really probably the first song which was actually came out right after the October 7th attacks, and it's called Not Alone. And I think the fact that she herself came from a very small community, like almost like a kibbutz community. She herself is from the north of the country, but she very much identified with the notion of a small knit community where everyone has their role, and there are certain people who are responsible for certain events in the kibbutz, certain people who are responsible for certain things which everyone has a role, and if someone is missing, it's a terrible situation for the community. So I think she really identified with that. And because she grew up in this kibbutz-like environment, and she understood what would happen and what it meant for a close-knit kibbutz community to lose such a huge number of people. If you think of kibbutz Nir Oz, for example, where a third of the kibbutz members were murdered or kidnapped, or Be'eri, where 100 kibbutz members were murdered and 30 were kidnapped. In such a community, it means that the most basic functions of the kibbutz, which certain people had always been responsible for upholding, were now abandoned. So within the first week of the war, she created a song about the loss of these crucial people and their role in keeping everyone together. And it's true, we'll see the different images. We have two slides. The first slide is very much of a burned tree. And then we'll see where this slowly, this resilience comes in with certain piece of trying to piece things together and trying to find hope and resilience in these minutes and moments of sadness. So let's hear the song in its entirety, and then we're going to discuss a bit this issue of optimism in times of war. So I'm just going to play this.
העץ שבגינה שלנו לא שרד, נשרף כולו בבוקר מקולל אחד, והגינה עומדת יתומה, ולא נותר מי שישקה בה את האדמה, ומי ישיר בטקס בקיבוץ, ומי ירקוד במעגל על הבמה בחוץ, מי יקשט טרקטורים ועגלות, ומי יקצור את החיטה שבשדות, נושיט כולנו יד, אנחנו לא לבד, שותפי גורל, כאב ואהבה כעם אחד, נבכה ונתגבר, כמו אז לא נשבר, יש לנו רק אחד, את השני ולא יותר, ולא צריך יותר. שורשי העץ נאחזים בלב האדמה, ישובו לעלות לצמוח עם המנגינה, ניגון עתיק של נחמה וצחוק הילדים, אנחנו בית לעצמנו, סוף לנדודים.
Sorry about that.
העץ שבגינה שלנו לא שרד, נשרף כולו בבוקר מקולל אחד, והגינה עומדת יתומה, ולא נותר מי שישקה בה את האדמה, ומי ישיר בטקס בקיבוץ, השני ולא יותר, ולא צריך יותר. שורשי העץ נאחזים בלב האדמה, ושובו לעלות לצמוח עם המנגינה, ניגון עתיק של נחמה וצחוק הילדים. אנחנו בית לעצמנו, סוף לנדודים, נושיט כולנו יד, אנחנו לא לבד, שותפי גורל כאב ואהבה כעם אחד, נבכה ונתגבר, כמו אז לא נשבר, יש לנו רק אחד את השני ולא יותר, ולא צריך יותר. זכור את הפרחים, כל מי שנקטפו, יפה תואר מלאכים בדגל נטפו, ומי שעוד לא שב, מי אלו מגדלו, מדליק בו אור גדול עד שאלינו יחזור, נושיט כולנו יד, אנחנו לא לבד, שותפי גורל כאב ואהבה כעם אחד, נבכה ונתגבר, כמו אז לא נשבר, יש לנו רק אחד את השני ולא יותר, ולא צריך יותר.
So, in a way, this song is really a song of sadness. It starts with the terrible things which happened in the kibbutz on that day. It starts by telling us about all the sad and tragic things that happened, how this was a day of sadness. This was a day where the trees were burnt, and who was going to bring the kibbutz back to what it was? Who is going to return us to? Who's going to water the plants which were all burnt? Who's going to bring back all of the terrible things which we lost? The tree in our garden didn't survive. It was burnt, and the garden is completely orphaned, and there's no water, and there's no one left to water the soil. Who's going to sing in the ceremony in the kibbutz? Who's going to dance? All these people, a third of the kibbutz was murdered or kidnapped. Who's going to do all these things which were our life, our common life? And then her way of dealing with it, and by the way, if you notice, there's a difference, the shift between the minor of these songs and the major of the chord. We'll all extend a hand. We are not alone, and we are partners in fate, in pain, and in love. As one people will cry, and we will overcome. And like then, we're not going to break, like in our past, in all of Jewish history, and all of Israeli history. And we're going to come together. We have each other. And the roots of the trees will go into the earth, and then this is something we're going to be rebuilding. We're going to be a lighthouse for the people who were praying are going to return. These are the chatufim, the hostages, and the other lyrics talk about how we're going to build new, and everyone's going to come back together, and we're going to remember all the flowers who were picked. And so this is a song, on one hand, of deep sadness, tragedy, lost. People are losing a huge part of their heart. On the other hand, it's also a song which is giving us a sense of resilience, of hope, of we've gone through terrible things in the past, and we're going to get through this. And it's amazing to think this is really a week after the October 7th tragedy, just trying to sort of fathom what even happened, and to already have a song which is full of resilience is something really very phenomenal. We only have a few more minutes before our time is up. I want to show you a picture of this very brave woman who wrote this song, and to talk a little bit about what she saw as her role. Let me just make sure that you can see this with me. So this is singer Doron Talmon, who we just heard from this Jane Bordeaux band, and she spoke. This is a video clip. We're not going to watch it, but she talks about how it was a lovely week until this happened. This terrible thing happened, and from then on, she wrote this song, and then she went immediately down to the hotels where these kibbutz members were evacuated to, and she went and sang for them and performed for them and sang funny songs and sang sad songs, and she felt as though, she says, I feel as though I'm a soldier and this is my mission. And in a way, what happened to musicians and to music in general, I think, after the October 7th and throughout the war, was that musicians began to understand their role as people who bring music to people in a very different way. Sometimes even musicians who had stopped performing went back to performing because they felt a real need of this function of someone who is willing to go and to sing and to give joy to people who have lost everything, and coming back even afterwards to a regular performance was kind of a letdown because it was such a high to perform to people who were injured in hospitals, to perform to soldiers, to perform to families who had lost family members, who were evacuated and lost their homes, and it really felt such an important role, and musicians began to receive really an important place. They sang at funerals, something which, as you know, in Jewish custom, music is usually the opposite of mourning. And here, music was used for mourning. Music was sung in funerals, and it was sung in Shiva, and musicians were invited to Shiva houses to sing for families who were sitting Shiva. We see here on the right a musician who's standing right inside the graveyard with a microphone and a guitar, and he's been asked to sing a song, maybe the favorite song of the deceased, maybe a song to do with death and memory. And here on the left, we see under the tree, standing up, is Shlomo Artzi with his sunglasses. Shlomo Artzi is a very beloved singer who sang for many soldiers, and he was part of these army bands, which we heard of before. And he said, and you see this quote, I've performed in many wars, but I've never been expected to sing at a funeral or a shiva. I went to a shiva call, just as someone who was going to comfort, and I suddenly realized that they want me to sing. End of quote. So this is a new experience for him, and we see him here in the Shiva. These people who are mourning the loss of maybe a soldier or their son, maybe someone who's from their family, and he comes and sings to them, and with I think it's his grandson who plays guitar, and they are going and performing, and music is seen as so important. Musicians are expected to give some kind of context to this terrible, unclear situation that we're in, to give hope and to give perspective and comfort and guidance, to almost be like a spiritual leader, and there's new meaning to their craft. Many hostages, when they returned, and they were in the hospital for the first few days, the first people they asked to come and visit them were singers. Shlomo Artzi is one of them, Hanan Ben Ari, other singers. So these hostages, the first people they wanted to visit them in the synagogue, not the synagogue, in the hospital, was not their rabbi and not their commander in the army, but a musician which they loved. A musician, maybe the song of this musician was in their ears throughout their captivity and gave them hope and kept them alive sometimes. And so I think music has received a really strong role as something which gives hope and optimism during very, very dark times. So I wanted us to end with two songs. This is just how many song musicians who were killed, their songs after their death suddenly received new meaning and new resonance. On the right, we see Anel Shapira, who was a musician whose family put out his CD in a concert with an empty microphone and everyone around singing the songs which he wrote and recorded. And down here, we see Tamar Samet, who also was a very talented musician. And up the top, we see Yahel Gazit, who was part of a trio called Rash Lavan. And this is another musician who was a headmaster of a school and a teacher, and he composed a song of even though I should walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they will comfort me. We know this from Psalms, and this is a song which he composed. And after his death, it of course suddenly became very famous and beautiful. And there's also this notion of even if I walk in the valley of the shadow of death, I will not fear. I will feel no evil. So these are songs which we don't really have time to do, but this is a song called A Nation of Superheroes. And this is a song, you can see the lyrics translated in English in the video clip. And it's talking about how because we have this reserve duty, so people who are just normal people, not even soldiers in their compulsory army service, but any person walking in the street could be called up for reserve duty and have to go in and protect the people and the nation. And it's how almost like superheroes, who you don't know it's a Superman, you just think he's a journalist, and then he goes and puts on his cape, puts on his army, in this case his army uniform, and turns into a superhero. And the song is called We Are a Nation of Superheroes, and it has a very lovely clip, so I thought we would do this as our song before last.
אז המורה לתנ"ך בגבעתי, המורה ללשון מודיעין.
I just want to check that we're doing this with sound. Yes, you can see this with sound. Okay.
השכן מלמעלה קבלן עבודות, אבל חודש כבר במילואים. עורכת הדין היא קמבצית, עושה משמרות באוגדה. אחיה איש הייטק בכיר, עכשיו הוא צלף על גגות ברצועה. מנהל את הסניף הקשוחה של הבנק, היא סמג"ד ביהודה ושומרון. דורון הוא בעל חנות צעצועים, עכשיו הוא מ"פ בשריון. והמדי שלנו כפרה, שלרוב מזמר בקיסריה. הוא לוחם הנדסה, מתאושש בגבורה, אחרי שנפצע בלב עזה. נכון כולם נראים רגילים, אבל אנחנו עם של גיבורי על. בכל אחד תמיד מסתתר חייל, מוכן להציל את העולם. יש תנהג אוטובוס של דן, זה שתמיד עומד בזמן. הוא עכשיו מפקד סוללת תותחנים בדרום, ליד נרעם. יש סטודנט בטכניון, באמצע תואר ראשון. הוא סרן במיל בעוצבת הגליל, כבר חודש בגבול הצפון. יש פה דוגמנית פרמדיקית, יש פה חשמלאי שהוא מגיסט. יש את יוני נגן סקסופון מחונן, שהוא קודם כל מטקליסט. יש לכולם ארוני סטאר, או ארגז גדול מאובזר. יש פה סט של מדים וגלימת מילואים, מוכנות תמיד לאתגר. נכון כולם נראים רגילים, אבל אנחנו עם של גיבורי על. בכל אחד תמיד מסתתר חייל, מוכן להציל את העולם. וזה לא
I'm just stopping this song here in this. I hope you understand this notion of superheroes, and how this is a sense that everyone has within him this also superpower to go out and decide that he's going to defend with his own body the nation and see it as his job and his role, and sort of a heroic kind of role of protecting the country and the people he loves, and so that also in a way adds kind of an optimistic view of resilience and hope and togetherness to this very difficult and tragic time. And songs were there to express it. And our last song has to do with hoping for a good ending. This is a video clip which was created while using artificial intelligence. And in a way, we have singer Yoni Bloch, who is trying to envision how this terrible, very long, the longest war ever in Israeli history would end. And it was very hard to imagine the hostages coming back. It was very hard to imagine how this whole terrible thing is going to end. And in a way, of course, using AI, artificial intelligence, he creates a clip in which we see fantastical things happening, such as this singer himself warming up Taylor Swift, who comes for a tour to Israel, which is very kind of unimaginable, or the Israeli football team winning the World Cup, all sorts of crazy things, but also the hostages returning and wonderful things happening, and the army bases turning into like lovely and beautiful amusement parks. So we have here an ability to hope for a good end, and you have it also here in this clip with English subtitles.
אולי פשוט נתחיל עם סוף טוב ונלך אחורה בזמן, נפרסם תמונות ברחוב של כל מי שהחזרנו משם, נתחיל אחרי שיש כבר שלום ורק נשאר לסגור כמה פרטים, נזמין את כל תושבי הצפון למסיבת שפיות ברעים. חוץ מזה אין מה לדבר, חוץ מזה זה לא יעזור, משהו אחד יסתדר ומשהו אחר יעבור. חוץ מזה אנחנו פה כבר ואין לנו לאן לעזור, אז גם אם לא נשיג שום דבר, לפחות נתחיל עם סוף טוב. אולי נחזור לריב על שטויות, ניתקע כל בוקר בפקק, נראה חצי שעה חדשות והופעה של ברונו בפארק, נוכל לטוס לאן שנרצה ואז לחזור הביתה כי נגמר. אם מישהו ישאל מה קורה, נגיד לו שעכשיו כבר מותר. חוץ מזה מה לדבר, חוץ מזה זה לא יעזור, משהו אחד יסתדר ומשהו אחר יעבור. חוץ מזה אנחנו פה כבר ואין לנו לאן לעזור, אז גם אם לא נשיג שום דבר, לפחות נתחיל עם סוף טוב. חוץ מזה נגמר כבר הזמן ואין לנו לאן לעזור, דיברנו על כל סוף בעולם, לפחות נתחיל עם סוף טוב. חוץ מזה אנחנו פה כבר ואין לנו לאן לעזור, אז גם אם לא נשיג שום דבר, לפחות נתחיל עם סוף טוב.
So this is really a very good ending to which helped us to imagine during the darkest days that things could end well. And with the hostages, it was really almost we were afraid to hope how wonderful that they all could return. I mean that the hostages would return. And so this song had a really important role in imagining what could happen. So I think I'd like to end now and just to thank very much the opportunity to talk a little bit about the war and the optimism which the music brought into the very dark, difficult, tragic times, and the resilience which songs were trying to instill and the Israeli people were using music and lyrics, which gave a lot of strength and bravery, and hope that things could be better. So I thank you, and I'm happy to move this on to Marilyn so that we can move into the question modes. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Naomi. That was incredibly moving and very important message and very hopeful point of view. We're inviting question and answer now, and please type it into the Q&A box on your screen there, and make sure that it is a question and not a statement. That just makes it easier for us to manage. I wanted to just start off by asking you, for those of us who are in the diaspora, we have been incredibly moved by all the stories that have come out of Israel during this terrible, dark time. And I see on the list of participants that many of us are indeed warriors and heroes in our own rights, here standing up for Zionism and the importance of the survival of our nation and our people. But it's very, very different being so far away from Israel. And I wondered if you had any kind of insights or advice for us who care deeply about this war and our survival as a people and as a nation.
That's a lovely question. Um, I think the notion that that people in Israel would feel, I think they do feel the love and support of the diaspora communities, and that we're not alone. And anytime anyone raises an Israeli flag or comes to visit, we haven't had tourists for so long, and we would love to welcome anyone who's brave enough to get on an airplane, an El Al airplane, and be hopeful that they'd be able to get back home safely as well. Um, I don't know. I think in a way, also being connected through the media and even through music is a way to sort of feel close and understand. Today, with the ability of ChatGPT to translate any text of any song in YouTube, you can just, you hear a song and even the lyrics are in Hebrew, you're able to understand it, understand the context, and be more connected, so that when you are able to come or when you are able to meet an Israeli, there's this already instant connection with the culture, which is always a reflection of what happens in the people themselves. And here,
Oops,
I think it's
sorry, I muted myself while you were talking. Yeah, someone is asking, as a trainee in the U.S. Army, they would always sing a cadence while marching, and this made the marching a little bit less onerous. And they're wondering if there's an equivalent sing-song kind of marching song in the IDF.
Interesting. We do have marching songs, accompanied by the Israeli IDF marching band sort of thing. There are these brass bands, but they're really only for ceremonies. Otherwise, marching isn't a very big part of Israeli army training, at least from my experience as a soldier and as a mother of two soldiers, and all of their, um, you know, the marching would only be done to either a recorded song or if there's a budget to actually bring the band itself, but that would only be in a ceremony. It wouldn't be in training. So marching isn't so much part of training, and singing songs or marching songs isn't so much part of the music in the army. There is a lot of music, particularly in the war. There was many soldiers who, they were gathering before battle, and you had musicians, Israeli musicians, who would come to these gathering areas and sing to them. The same way that, we saw Leonard Cohen and Mati Caspi singing to the troops before they went in the Yom Kippur War. So quite similarly, you had songs like that. And these songs were very significant.
Okay. I see there is someone with a raised hand, but I don't think we can show them on our screen. Anne, would you like to just type your question into the chat? That would be the best, I guess. Maybe while she's doing that, I could just, I was following Yuval Raphael at the Eurovision contest, and I was voting from Canada, and really, really rooting for her. And it was so incredibly inspirational. And I wondered if you could just comment a little bit about the fact that she won the popular vote, while at the same time there was so much backlash against her. People were wanting to boycott the contest because Israel was there, and some even booed her during her performance. Could you just maybe shed some light on
Yes.
that?
The Eurovision contest is it's very complex on a way because it's a contest which officially is the broadcasting authorities, of each country, sort of the national broadcasting authority. They're the ones who are sponsoring and sending and they're also voting, representing their country. But lately we have this popular vote, and in this way, people who are outside a country can vote for a country. I mean, you can't ever vote for your own song, as in Israel, I can't vote for Israel, but anyone outside can. So first of all, maybe connecting to your first song, this is a huge vote of love of the diaspora Jewry who are able to vote from Israel because they live outside Israel from any other country. And I mean, this outpouring of love, what can we do? At least we can vote for the. I think this is very emotional for all of us to understand what a support we have from the Jewish side of it. But also, I imagine that politically, there's a climate where you can't perhaps support something Israeli in a very sort of outward way. But this song happened to be beautiful, whether it's because you wanted to support a beautiful song, New Day Will Rise, very hopeful about rebuilding and coming out of this terrible situation. And Yuval Raphael has a beautiful voice and a very tragic story, was something which really touched many hearts. So whether people chose it because they just loved the song and the voice and the meaning, or if they knew the story and they wanted to show some support to Israel, somehow this converged together in a way. In the popular vote, if it was only the popular vote, she probably would have been the first place. But in this way, they did bring her up to the second place, I think, or the third place. I think the second place even. And it was a huge outpour of love after she had been really booed, and the security around her was very, very strict because they were afraid she was going to be, attacked in some way. And the previous year was probably even worse, with Eden Golan having to be really protected and booed almost till he couldn't hear her when she was singing. Again, this song of Hurricane, which they had to change the name. Originally, it was October Rain, but the committee asked that it not be political, and so they had to change it to a Hurricane. And so I think that there are very different, very strong, like a clash of these. On one hand, seeing this as a chance to protest against Israel's policies and Israel in general, maybe a bit of anti-Semitism in there as well. And also, on the other hand, this desire to show support of Israel and of the message and of the singers who by chance are very good. And they already chose last week the singer who's going to represent Israel in the upcoming Eurovision Song Contest. And he's a francophone. He speaks French, and I'm sure there's going to be some French in his song. There was also in Yuval Raphael's song some French, and I hope we do well. It's never simple. There's lots of boycotting in countries that say they're not going to participate, and it's not simple at all. Even Vienna, the ones who are supposed to be hosting the Eurovision, have to sort of take a stance in some way. It's not simple at all, but the music is good, so at least we get to enjoy that.
Great. There is a question asking if there's a website where we can access more contemporary Israeli music that you've talked about. Is there like some
Um,
links
I'm,
that
I'm
you
happy to
offer?
I'm happy to send this PowerPoint presentation afterwards if you'd like. So you can add a link to whoever wants to
Great.
download it. But that's a good question. An English website accessing new Israeli songs. I don't know. I guess you'd have to try through YouTube for the best top 10 Israeli songs and find a translation. I can't recommend of one good English language Israeli pop website, unfortunately.
Yeah. If you think of something, you can let me know and I'll include it in our follow-up email everyone.
Maybe I should try and do one myself. I mean, it's very important, this connection, as you say, this connection to what's happening, what the culture is. There's a lot more religious music now. There's a lot more trance music because of the Nova Festival. There's trance music. Lots of interesting things are happening, and they are sort of a reflection of how the culture and the society, like these deeper, societal shifts in Israeli society, which music is very good at reflecting and showing and designing.
Yeah. Could you speak a little bit about religious music and how it's impacted religious music? Because I think, we've all experienced a profound calling back to our religion in the context of what's going on.
Yes. So I have to say that this began even before October 7th. There was really an interest in Israeli mainstream culture, which has always been very secular. But I think maybe since the late 1990s, even more so from the 2000s, there was a real interest in religious music, not just being something which is sort of sidelined and marginalized, but brought into the mainstream as something which is relevant to mainstream Israelis, even if they're traditional and not religious necessarily, as something which is relevant to their culture and to their belief system. And music was, of course, part of this. So we have religious singers like Hanan Ben Ari or Yishai Ribo, who were creating new songs with religious content, which become, top hit parade songs, and they're singer of the year. And this is something which never used to be. A religious singer sang for religious people and then maybe sang at a wedding or in a yeshiva. But for this to become like mainstream pop was a new thing. And of course, as you say, in the war, we also have we have a real search of, these people hate us because we're Jewish. What does it mean to be Jewish? And can I connect more to my Jewishness? We hear it from people who were hostages and who were, forced or coerced to Islam to convert to Islam, and they refused, and they tried to remember fragments of prayers that they remembered from their childhood, or what you would do what blessing should I say when I eat something, even if they had never practiced religiously before. They suddenly felt as though they wanted to be thankful they connected to God in a way which they never had before. And many hostages came back, speaking with religious terms, even though they really hadn't come from any religious background, and they weren't now, practicing religious Jews, but it really just somehow resonated with them, and they were more interested in keeping certain observances and being connected to, maybe to a siddur or to reading the Torah or to putting on tefillin once a day. And so it was interesting to see how also musically this manifested itself. So we had Am Yisrael Chai, was probably the second song which came out, a song by Eyal Golan, one of the most famous Mizrahi singers in Israel, and many other songs which sort of, in a way, sort of echoed this religious sentiment in the world of song. And it was very much connected. And you had even prayer songs, which suddenly became, much more mainstream, and quotations from verses from Psalms and from the prayers brought into popular song. And it was very, very, like, it was seamless, this segue from religious to secular back to religious. And it wasn't perceived as two separate things or something which is a clear border between, but very much sort of combined. And so, and even when singers used to go to perform to soldiers, I know because my son, when he was in a kind of a meeting point where soldiers were, gathering before they went into Gaza, so he took a video for me because he knew I'm interested in the music aspect. And they had a musician who came, and he was doing slichot. He was singing slichot tunes, which were sung, a few weeks previously in the month of Elul, and we're coming up to Yom Kippur. And this was a few weeks later, just right after Sukkot, of course. And it just seemed to be relevant to sing to all these soldiers, part of the high holiday prayers before they go into battle. And everyone just received it as very, very natural, or saying Shema Yisrael together, or singing songs of Shema Yisrael before going into battle, even for people who weren't religious, and sometimes not even people who were Jewish, because we have Druze and Arab Christians and Muslim in the army, but they sort of accepted it as kind of, this is the going into the battle of the Israeli army is done in this way. And so music also reflected this sort of interest, this new interest in religiosity in Israeli society.
Beautiful, very inspiring. So one last question. I don't see any more from the audience, but I'm curious about if you could share a little bit about what it's like right now in Israel and how you keep your own spirits hopeful and optimistic, given that you have, children who are, or grown adult children who are in the army. And yeah, how do you keep your spirits up?
Um, well, it's much easier for me since my son was released from his, compulsory, he finished his 3 years of compulsory service. He was a tank commander, and when he was in and out of Gaza, I was a nervous wreck. Teaching during that time and just, being a patient mother was very challenging. But all my friends, we were in the same situation. We would have like these mother meetings where we all just sat and said Tehillim together, prayed together, and sort of strengthened each other and sang sometimes. So he was released from his compulsory service, and the war also sort of ended in a way. Since the last hostage came back, even more, we feel as though it's ended. So it is a time of calm and peacefulness. On the other hand, we do have to prepare our bomb shelter, and I just went down to put some more water in there because there are sort of the clouds of war are gathering, and we have this threat of war from Iran, which is probably going to come. And in a way, we're very fearful of it because the Iranian missiles are terrible. They're much worse than the Yemenite or the Hamas missiles. They're very powerful. And if I went into Tel Aviv last week, and you can still see huge, huge like craters in buildings, and things have not gone back. For some people, their homes have been destroyed, and that's it. So this is terrible damage which can be done, and also people lost their lives. 30 something people lost their lives in the Iranian attack in June, July. So we are very fearful of this. On the other hand, we also feel as though this is a threat which must be removed from our heads, the nuclear and the missile threats. And in a way, we're sort of praying for a war, which is something I just said we never do. So there you go. We're in a way hoping that there is going to be some kind of resolution if it could be done peacefully, although we're all a little bit skeptical of the Iranian promises that they will put down their guns peacefully and go into peace. So in a way, there is an understanding the only way to deal with this is a military way, and there is hope that President Trump does what we hope is the right thing, which is to destroy their ability to hurt Israel in a very terrible way. So that's where we are now. So we're, I think, in a lull in between, which is it's a place where it's difficult to be peaceful, when it's not actually over. And my son is called up for reserve duty, of course. It's never really over. There's always someone who's in or someone who's going in, and we're still cooking meals for soldiers, and we're still bringing meals for families whose husbands and fathers are in reserve duty on Shabbat. So, it's something which is a constant reminder that it's not actually over. And there's lots of praying. War is good for prayer. It's good for making us for our belief in God and that things are in God's hands, and to hope and pray for the best.
Oh. Well, I am so grateful for your sharing today. It's been very, very meaningful and inspirational. You are a true warrior and a superhero, as you described our nation. And I'm really, really grateful. I just want to take a few minutes before we wrap up to invite people to our next lecture in our series, which will be with Dr. Joshua Jacobson on Sunday, March the 8th at 11 a.m. on Zoom. And Dr. Jacobson's talk is titled Jewish Music, What's That? And he is a foremost world-recognized authority of Jewish music. He's an author, a composer, a scholar, a choral conductor of Zamir Chorale in Boston. And he's going to help us consider what we actually mean by Jewish music and how musical expression is a core part of our Jewish identity. So we're really looking forward to that. Sam, if you could put the registration link into the chat, and we'll also include it in our follow-up email to everyone. I want to thank our wonderful team of Building Bridges volunteers, Sam Margolis and Ann Petrie, for all their assistance. Thanks to our board of directors and Rabbi Lynn for their support of this series of talks. And our gratitude goes to the Jewish Federation of Victoria and Vancouver Island for their generous funding, which partially funds this series. I understand that many of you have already donated to Kolat Mayim when you registered for this talk, and we're so grateful for that support. If you would like to donate, we would be very, very grateful. And I want to thank each of you for joining us today. And I want to just now offer our heartfelt appreciation to Dr. Naomi Cohn Zentner for her deep insights and inspiration that she so generously shared with us today. And wondering if Dr. Cohn Zentner, if you would like to offer any final words to us.
Yeah, thank you very much. I mean, for me, living through it in a way, I don't always see the larger picture, but this invitation to the series sort of made me take a step back and look at the larger picture of things, and also contributed to me, this idea that we're only one link in a very long, long line, and that we will overcome this, and that music is going to help us to do that. And thank you very much for asking me to participate in this lecture series.
We're very grateful. Farewell, everyone. Shalom.
Thanks. All the best.